From Rodney Jones' Salvation Blues. The first piece I'm going to read is called Risks. I had not seen how dangerous the country was until he gunned it, downshifted into third, and split the seam between the station wagon going east and the tractor trailer going west. The needle dead on the speedometer's horizon, all of us tarred black from a day of laying pipe, the cold buds like tickets in our greasy fingers, him hollering fuckers and us begging, "Stop, you son of a bitch, Jimmy, stop this thing, let me out." We were going to college. We would be something, and nothing like him, married, a dad at 17, though later when we talked, it would be of him, stumbling home drunk at 5 a.m. to sucker punch his father-in-law and then torch the garage, as earlier it had been of him, bolting from the cliff above the rock crusher, clowning through flips for the first 50 feet and then knifing down clean, the water so smooth, and him holding his breath so long down there, they said there was a cave under a big rock where he would come up, roll a Leviathan joint, and smoke it as we stood arguing the details of collaring the rescue squad, and then he would surface with that same hard, contagious laughter he had carried from childhood, as he had always been the one holding it up to us. The tattoos, the muscles, the slick back hair, sassing and taunting even when he'd gone to Nam, and the dozen shit jobs and the pen. After the burglaries, the assaults, the homicide, him talking through our mouths, him clenching our fists, him never taking it from anyone. And now, given the consecutive lives to think, the nights in a cell, the days sewing wallets, pressing sheet metal into tags, loading laundry into chutes, hoeing the prison beans, does he think of us at all? Is he even conscious of us when he dreams he has us begging on our knees? And when the blood starts, does he love us now that we speak of him often and always with that sweet fear that marks our liberty?
The Kingsley Tufts Award is not just for me, but for poetry. It's a statement of the importance of poetry. That poetry is valued, and that people should pay attention to it, and that that includes me. I've always valued this award. When I didn't receive it, I've wanted to look at those books, and I've thought, because the judges have been so good and so independent, I've thought that means something. And it means something to me deeply. I mean, I firmly appreciate it. I don't think it has to do with anything other than people's love of the art. And the faith that you have as a writer should always be in people who love the art and who are pure. And I see it that way. This is an odd poem, and I'll just read a few more, but it's sort of a story. I was a wonderful hippie. I loved being a hippie. I lit my hair often. That was a problem. My hair was out of control, and I kept lighting my hair. And it's not cool. The smell of burning hair is not a cool thing, but I felt very cool. And I felt very wealthy because I was able to work in the Summers factory, in the factories in the summer, and my parents were generous and believed in education, and I was able to be a hippie 9 months a year. And it was a great life. And at some point I just ran out of money and I had to go to work. And it was so odd being around people who were talking about compromising and taking a job suddenly, and being cast out of this sort of middle-class world into the world of the wallpaper warehouse where I was working. So this is no doubt a lie about all of that. It's called Not See Again. Long I partied hearty with Hogdew and Weird Harold, one of the hippies waiting the orbit of the strobing joint, talking sidemen on the liner notes of albums and exotic booby traps of Cambodia and Vietnam, until out of money I compromised and took a job, working beside Floyd, a pinkish African-American with tattoos up his neck and improbably orange hair. Meeting, we'd hardly speak, passing the paper slip, we'd consult separately, filling the same order. Loading boxes on the warehouse's high shelves, I thought of the sports car elect, free those afternoons to motor past the magnolias and daffodils of Greek Row, and assistant professors cooing toward whispering trysts and borrowed efficiencies, and desperate women shimmying onto the mirrored stage of the Pussycat to bare and jiggle their breast for crystal meth. But also, oddly, each day I grew more attached to the unspoken etiquettes of that work, to the secretary Jane, who materialized each morning, split skirt flashing from her Triumph's green shine, and to the men, each with his legend and games. There was Dalton, infamous for his marriage to an heiress, and Baird, who'd served 2 years for manslaughter after accidentally shooting his wife while trying to kill another woman. And others remembered faintly from remarks, "Boss don't fuck with me, knows I cut him." They called me Buttcut, Shorty, the Presbyterian, and wanted to know what the notebook was for. "I'm studying the poetry of Christopher Marlowe," I would say, and someone would answer, "Huh?" Not that "huh" meant anything anyone would want to study. Even shipping clerks know poetry means romance. All day, Floyd would croon at the top of his bad voice the Temptations, Otis Redding, or Stevie Wonder. And one afternoon, he cornered Roy, the foreman, to say how the night before he had met a woman in a bar, and when the bar shut down, they'd gone to a party way out in the country. A house, music, dancing, more drinking, and this is where it got fuzzy. Either the lights had gone out and there'd been a fight, or there hadn't. But when he came to the next morning, the car was missing and the girl. Roy looked at Floyd the way a roofer looks at sleet. "God damn," he said, and shook his head. But the next morning, daybreak, he picked us up and we rode around looking for Floyd's car. Roy drove slowly, grunting as he sucked his pipe. We circled, hollering to families on porches whenever Floyd seemed to remember a bridge or barn. By 11 o'clock, we'd stop twice for beer. It hurt Floyd to ask Roy for help, to admit it wasn't the car, a rusted out and bunged up Oldsmobile he wanted to find, but the girl. Roy spoke in an urgently deliberate patois of South Carolina, which seemed, in the way the words got enjammed and the way the vowels dragged the voice through the consonants, to be more singing impediment than speech. Dalton mumbled of the 50s on the Riviera, and as he got drunker, Baird kept pitching in. "I told the bitch, come back, your ass is mine." Okay, it wasn't poetry, but it made Floyd laugh. We didn't find the car. Christopher Marlowe never finished his translation of Hero and Leander. By dark, we'd finished our last 6-pack of malt liquor. The stars had just come out. How lucky I was to have gone broke, not to have it all regurgitated from me from a book, but to have lain in a field with the tongue-tied, the murderous, the illiterate, and the alcoholic. Since I've ended up like this, the sedative raconteur, the contemplative man.
Well, it's one of the most lucrative and most important competitions in the nation. For the Kingsley Tufts Prize at $100,000, that's the biggest prize that you can win as a poet. And so in that sense, it's incredibly important for poets and for poetry to be able to award that level of support. For the Kate Tufts Prize at $10,000, the monetary award is certainly significant, one of the most significant prizes for a first book poet, But even more so, I think the recognition that comes along with that prize really sort of launches a poet forward into their career. And that really stands out among the other prizes that are given for published books.
One big difference about this prize is that it awards a significant amount of money, and it's no joke. We should respect sums of money. And I think it's $100,000 this year. That can really make a difference in an artist's life. It can solve health problems, it can supply significant time off, and in just most brutal terms, it's tangible, actual encouragement. And encouragement can mean a lot to an artist. So one thing unique about this prize is its size. Another thing I love about it is that this couple, who are not fabulously wealthy, very personally, because they loved writing and loved poetry, Kingsley and Kate Tufts designed the two-part prize. And in what I like to think of as a fairly American, characteristically American way, it was invented by a couple of people. It doesn't represent some religious institution or academic institution. It's not from a corporation. It's from two not splendidly wealthy people who decided this is what they wanted to do with their financial resources.
Tonight we're celebrating some visionaries, apart from the poets. We're celebrating one of my predecessors, a president, who saw the possibility of creating this award and making it something of lasting value. But most of all, we're celebrating two individuals who were themselves poetically inclined, had a fortune, and decided, let's invest this fortune in something that carries on beyond us. I interviewed one of their descendants tonight, and I said, do you think they would be happy if they were here now? And he said, they would be thrilled. And that means the world to me.